All right, welcome back to another episode of Unbound Being. And today I'm going to speak about interconnectedness. As you know, I make videos about all kinds of things, and lots of subjects are not being faced today in our world. Even science is unwilling to accept certain premises without what they call proof. They need the proof that this is so, which usually means they can either measure it, see it, taste it, feel it. In one way, measure it. Basically, it's all they're saying. And we are all interconnected, and even 100 years ago, the fact that we would chop down forest in the Amazon, most people at least, were not aware of the fact that it was so interconnected, that the web of life that we live in is so interconnected that it would affect things in Greenland and Iceland and wherever on the other side of the planet. And one of the other things that we are not accepting yet in a general, the general public doesn't know, and even the general scientific field of people do not want to accept, because they don't have any proof, like I said, is the psychic interconnectedness of things. The interconnectedness of the psyche of the humanity and all animals on the planet, everything. So in other words, we're living in this world, and it seems that there's space between me and the camera, and me and the walls, and me in the back. And there's space in all the cells, and there's space everywhere. Basically, we find out 99.999% of everything is space. But we are still connected, and that seems not to be the case because there's space between. And what science even is finding now, even science, not that we have to go by science, because science has many great things, but also many incredible flaws and ignorances that they don't want to face. And one of them being this whole thing about proof. You know, they need proof, which means tangible proof to them. Well, one of the things that is now found out by the more intelligent sector of the science group, which is that in the quantum field that we live in this energetic field that we live in, this energetic universe, this holographic universe, whichever you want to call it, we are basically interconnected with filaments. The whole space, everything between you and I, and everything between the objects that you see is actually interconnected with one another through these invisible but incredibly powerful, filled with energy filaments that connect everything. In fact, they found that the space between the objects is actually filled with more energy than the actual object. So the connectedness of everything is inevitable. And we can see that now on a planetary scale, that when we pollute one river, it actually affects something across the other side of the globe. It affects everything. Well, the same thing counts for the psyche, and that's a field that most scientists haven't gone into yet. Which means this: if I have anger inside of me, the filaments of the energetic field, of the quantum field, the holographic field, which is filled with energy, goes out. And these filaments touch on everything. So it's a continuous feedback loop. What I experience, what you experience, what we all experience, it all is being fed back into this connected field, quantum field of energy in which we live and have our being. So to say that if I get angry or frustrated, that I only have myself with it, is not true. The thing we're noticing now is when I would pollute a river 50 years ago or chop down a forest somewhere, they would say, yeah, well, it's my land. I'm not affecting anybody with it. Respect me for who I am. I do what I do, and I'm not affecting anybody else's land. I'm not touching anybody else's property. Well, in fact, you do. And now we know that. We know now that you chop down rivers or forests and you pollute rivers in places across the globe. Well, it affects us anywhere else. So psychically, however, people say, if I want to be excited, if I want to be frustrated, if I want to be angry or jealous, then, it's my thing. You have to respect me for who I am and not have a problem with that, because it's my body, it's my mind, it's my whatever you want to call it, my psychic, my body, my field, whatever you want to call it. And this is now also discovered by a few people, but the majority of people are not accepting it yet, is that we are also psychically interconnected. Obvious, everything is connected. So whether it is a physical, the more tangible part of it, well, definitely everything is connected, and we can see that now. But when it comes to the psyche, it's also connected, interconnected. And which means the following. Let's say, for example, that you have a person that gets let's say I had this thing on Facebook a few days ago where people were talking about something, and they were saying there was a video of a rapist, a pedophile rapist, who was being hit on the street because they caught him trying to kidnap a little boy, and they were beating the shit out of him in the street. Which, fair enough, you know, they were doing that, which is to most people logical. However, what people don't know is that the culprit, the one to blame, is not just the pedophile, is not just the sexual energy in the pedophile which he's unable to contain, that is only confined to him. But in fact, our society with our sexual movies and our putting women on magazines with cars would have nothing to do with each other, well, except maybe that some women do go for guys with cars, but basically we have sexual society. We have most movies, movie centers where they rent out DVDs have pornographic stuff. I heard years ago that the internet actually is for almost a third or something like that is pornographic. You know, the internet became big, I think, on pornography. And so we have a very sexual, we got Hooters, we got, you know, nice waitresses everywhere, we got hot women on the TV, the best movie stars are generally good looking, and this is the society we built. So when you have a bunch of men in a restaurant and they're sitting there having a dinner, and you know there's a beautiful woman that walks in, which means a hot woman generally, right? A woman that's physically good looking. Doesn't mean she has a lot up here, but it does mean that, and she could. I'm not saying she does, that all waitresses are not intelligent, but generally speaking, the more beautiful women don't have to do much for their lives because they already get all the attention and the things that they want just by their looks, by their physical appearance. So the men are like, wow, you know, you can see the men, they're like, you know, I would like to give her something, you know. And that's how men generally talk to each other when they're without their girlfriends or wives, or they don't have a girlfriend or wife, and they're within a group. Generally, men have the tendency to be like, you know, like hunters, you know. Well, that's sexual energy, which is called lust. We have a word for that. That lusting after women goes back into the psyche. And I'll be coming back on this with more videos, but for this video, I just want to touch on one example, and I'll make another video with more examples. But maybe like part 1, part 2, part 3 or something, because this is a very delicate situation. The situation means the following, and it counts for aggression as well. When a man lusts after a woman anywhere on the planet, he is connected, interconnected, like the hairs on one head, like the hairs on a scalp. Each person is a hair, and when one person lusts or watches pornography or thinks about sexually about women and other, you know, females that are not there in his mind, and this lusting energy that is inside the human, the man, goes back into the psyche of humanity. Like the head, the scalp. The scalp is the entire body, the psychic energetic field of humanity. And each hair connected to that scalp is feeding back what it puts into it, what it's living, what it's experiencing, what it's allowing to live in its system, in the mind, in the emotions, in the feelings, allowing. So if lust is filling a person's body, when the men are groveling and like, you know, like to give her something, you know, that energetic, pornographic, sexual energy goes back into the human psyche, and the weakest of the species, the weakest people on Earth, which is not a way to put them down, but the ones that can't control that energy, when that energy comes into their system, they actually might see a 12-year-old girl riding her bike through the forest, and they take a look around, there's nobody around, and they grab her, rape her, and then you get these situations where everybody gets mad at the rapist only, thinking, and I know it's logical, and it seems because science hasn't shown us that, because they don't understand it yet for the larger part, that the psychic energy that the guy across the planet and that guy across the planet and all the different men that have been watching pornography and sexual lusting and looking at the women on the street and looking at the asses, you know how men look when they see women looking at the tits, looking at the asses, all that psychic energy went in, and this poor bugger that is the weakest one had to do it, couldn't control himself. Like mature people can't control themselves when they know smoking is not good for them. They still keep smoking, or they still have another cake when they know this, you know, they're getting too fat and it's going to cause them heart disease. But most people can't control those things. Well, the weaker of the species rape, and they do things, and they are violent. And in this case, the sexual energy goes into the rapist, and then everybody blames the rapist and wants to kill the rapist, murder the rapist, beat the rapist, put him in jail for the rest of his life, chop off his balls, chop off his whatever, you know, chop it all off because he's the guy that does it all. Well, he's not the guy that does it all. He is that hair which, when all the other hairs feed the pornography, all the sexual lusting into the scalp, comes through him and a few of them, and they can't control it, and they just do it. And they just like animalistically do it, and they rape somebody. And then everybody says, we're not to blame, he's to blame. And so you could kill the guy. That's another thing. When you kill the guy, let's say you put him, you give him the death sentence, and the guy's a rapist, he's done it several times, bam, you kill him. Now he's dead. What happens? Well, his psychic energetic field of his existence goes back into the humanity, in the human psyche, in the body of mankind, and then a new baby that gets born gets all of that, and the people around him get all of that. So it's not gone. You cannot kill these kinds of energies. They are an energetic pattern that lives on. Now, I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm going to make it another part, and I'm going to keep coming back on these examples. Also, I'm going to give a little example about anger, which is the same thing. All these energetic fields go into the human psyche, and then the weaker of the species can't control because they don't see how interconnected we really are. So I hope you like that. That's another episode of Unbound Being. Subscribe, like, and hope to see you next time. Take care.